Good morning. So in this video we are going to see part A questions of transportation planning from past KTU 2019 scheme S8 examination. In this video I cover all the part A questions from May 2024 examination and June 2023 examination of KTU. Now moving to the first question, that is explain the concept of movement and accessibility. So movement refers to ability of anything to travel from one location to another. So it represents the efficiency and ease of transportation network. Whereas accessibility means it is the ease with which people or goods which can reach desired destination or services or activities. So movement is the ability to travel and accessibility is the ability to access. For example, a highway which have a high movement provides high speed, but not necessary that it's highly accessible because only a few exits will be there, whereas a local street will be very much accessible, but the movement is very restricted because of the crowd in it. So this is the concept of movement and accessibility. Next question is explain the hierarchy of transportation facilities. So in sustainability context, the top priority of transportation infrastructure should be given to the pedestrians facility. Since walking is the most sustainable and healthy way, cities should be planned such a way that all the transportation infrastructure incorporate a facility for pedestrians so that people can switch their transportation mode to walk. Next, after the walking, it is cycling, because cycling is more safe and pollution-free transportation. So dedicated cycling lanes and facilities should be created to encourage non-motorized transportation. After walking and cycling comes the public transportation. As we all know, public transportations like buses, metro, trams are emphasized next. These carry many people very efficiently and it reduces the number of vehicles on the road, which ultimately reduces pollution, also congestion, and which can provide us more time span. So public transportation should be allocated below the cycling. Then comes the commercial vehicles or service vehicles, which are important for economy and activity. So we have to prioritize them as specific lanes or specific places to these commercial or service vehicles to park and to provide them an easy movement. And the lowest priority should be provided to private cars, because if we provide more importance to private cars, definitely people will switch from all other modes to private car, which is more comfortable, but it increases the congestion, it increases pollution, and it makes a chaos in the transportation infrastructures. So the least importance should be provided to private cars. So this is the sustainability context transportation hierarchy. And hierarchy of transportation facilities based on functions and services are expressway, arterial roads, collector roads, and local street. When we say expressway, it are the specific ways which provide high speed, high volume, and these ways have very restricted access, like NH. Whereas in arterial road, which are mainly situated at the urban centers, these are major roads connecting the different urban centers. Definitely it have more accessibility than expressway, and but the less number of vehicles will be utilizing these facilities. Coming to the third one, that is collector road, it collects the traffic from local street and connect to arterials, which is even more accessible than arterial roads, and it is also more rush. And coming to the last, local streets are the street which provide direct access to all the residents, all the people who are using the road facility. So this is mainly for business people, this is mainly for local people who can access to their day-to-day needs. So higher the hierarchy, the speed will be high, but the accessibility will be very low, but the mobility will be very high. Whereas at the lowest most point of the hierarchy, the accessibility will be very high, but the mobility, since due to the heavy traffic, the mobility will be less. Coming to third question, list the various factors affecting travel demand. We can say population growth, economic development, land use pattern, vehicle ownership, transport facility quality, and income levels, employment opportunities as well. So all these factors affect the travel demands. When the population growth is high, definitely the travel demand will also increases. And if economic status of the people are high, they have a tendency to move more than lower economic status. And depends upon the land use. If the land use is in urban area, we can say the people make more travel, more trips, whereas in local rural area, people make very less number of trips because they are very far away from the urban centers. And if the vehicle ownership of a person is more than 2, studies shows that more number of trips are happening for such kind of vehicle owners. Whereas if the vehicle ownership is less, their tendency to use the vehicle, private vehicles particularly, is very less. And if the transportation facility, quality of the transportation facility is very good, people will have a tendency to use more public transportation or more transportation modes. If the facility is very poor, they will try to reduce the number of trips to a few within a week. And coming to income levels, if the income is high, the tendency of the people to make trips are high. Mainly because if they are doing work or if they are doing a business, they may have to travel a lot. Whereas if the income is low, they will make very less number of trips. And coming to employment opportunity, if all the people in the household is employed, they definitely will make travel more than people who are not employed. Coming to the fourth question, explain the inventories in transportation planning. So inventories refers the systematic collection and organization of data about the existing transportation system and related factors within a study area. So inventories are collected data set which required for planning for a transportation facility. Now let's see what are the different inventories. First one is land use inventory. So when we plan for a transportation facility, we have to study the existing land use pattern, how the land is developing across this transportation facility. The planned area of transportation facility should be there. And coming to the next one, that is transportation facilities inventory. Say for example, if you want to build a new road or rail, we have to study the existing transportation facility nearby that study area. What are the roads so that we can make a connection to that existing road to entry point or exit point, and what are the nearby railway stations, how long it is to travel from that station to the station, and these kind of informations will be collected before moving to a new planning for a new facility. Then we have to see socio-economic factors like number of people, of population, and what are the income levels of population. As I said before, if the income level increases, the number of trips can also increases. And we have to see the employment status of the people or the population as an average. If the employment status is very high, we may have to provide more facilities compared to the population which have less employed. And traffic volume inventory should be done for any planning for any transportation facilities. So we have to study what are the number of trips happening in that study planning study area, and we have to see the current travel patterns. And also if we are providing some facility to reduce accident, we have to see the accident records for a safety planning process. So these are the inventories in order to use a new transportation planning. The next question, fifth question, is explain the concept of sampling in planning studies. So sampling involves selecting a representative subset of the population for any data collection. So instead of conducting a survey for entire population, maybe the population is very huge, like millions or billions, we cannot conduct survey for everyone, each and everyone, right? So we will select only a particular amount of population to conduct the survey. So this is called sampling. The purpose of the sampling is to reduce the cost and time that it may have consumed if you are doing the same survey for entire population. And there are different types of sampling called random sampling. Random sampling means we are just taking some people from some side and another from some other transportation infrastructure and so on. So we will collect the samples randomly from the study area. And in stratified sampling, we will collect the samples in a particular criteria by providing a particular criteria. And cluster sample means we will cluster the entire population, like some people are working, so employed people we will take 10%, old age people we will take 10%, school going kids we will take 10%, and so on. So we will cluster the entire population we divide the entire population into groups, and we will collect a particular percentage from each groups. So this is called cluster sampling. And this sampling is applied in travel surveys, trip generation studies, and so on. Sixth question is discuss the types of movement within the study area. When we say study area is an area which have a particular boundary within which our study will be conducted. So there are different types of movement occur in and outside the study area. They are divided into four. One is internal to internal. Internal to internal means trip starting from the study area and the destination is also within the study area. Now coming to internal to external, some people will be traveling from the study area to outside the study area is called internal to external trip. And external to internal means a trip coming from outside the study area towards the study area. And external to external trips will be there. Some people will be passing through the study area, which is called external to external movement. So these are the four types of movements that occur in study area. Seventh question is explain the application of traffic assignment. So in transportation planning, traffic assignment, which is also called route assignment or route choice, is the process of determining the routes that travelers will take between their origins and destination in a transportation network. So it is the fourth final step in the traditional four-step travel demand forecasting model, following the trip generation, trip distribution, and mode choice. So it is the final step in the four-step transportation model. Okay, now coming to the application of this traffic assignment is to determine the traffic flow on a different routes. And second application is to identify the congested areas and helps in road network design, supports traffic management decisions, and it also aids in investment planning for infrastructure improvement. Coming to next question, discuss the concept of post-distribution model. So the post-distribution model means it is a transportation planning refers to applying the modal split. Modal split is the dividing the total personal trips between different transportation modes like private car, public transit, walking, cycling, and so on. So after the trip distribution stage, if the modal split is conducting, we say it is a post-distribution modal split. So post-distribution modal split is a division of trips into different modes after the trip distribution phase. So the first step is to determine the trip origin and destination. Then we will allocate the trips across the modes based on the cost, time, and comfort. And finally, we will assign the different transportation modes. So it is important in multi-modal transport planning. The ninth question is explain the factors to be considered for the selection of land use model. So there are different land use models. The one is accuracy and reliability of the model, type of land use, transportation system characteristics, socio-economic factors like income, employment, age groups, and data availability and cost of this selection of the land use, and flexibility for the future growth scenario. So these are the factors which should be considered before selecting any land use models. 10th question is, explain the effect of transportation on land development with help of a neat flowchart. So transportation has a huge influence on how land is developed, because when we provide a transportation infrastructure, as we can see around us, if you look at your own place, if a new rail or new road facility is going to implement, the surrounding area will be converted into something business oriented, or where people can gain more income based on that facility, right? So when we provide a transportation infrastructure, it changes the land use of the surrounding area. So effect of transportation on land development can be flowcharted into transportation improvement. It increases the accessibility, rise in land value, and then it changes the land use pattern, and urban growth and development will occur. So accessibility increases land value means when the area is closer to the highway or metro station or any airport, it becomes more desirable, and land near this good transport facility usually become more expensive. So the land value will get increased. Then urban sprawl will be there. When new roads are built, cities spread outward because people can live further and still commute easily. So for example, suburbs growing outside the big cities are a very good example of this urban sprawl. There is also business growth happening. As I said before, when a new transportation infrastructure is introduced, shopping malls will be introduced, offices, restaurant, warehouse pop up near and everywhere in this transportation hubs. So this business growth will be happening within or around this transportation infrastructure. Then transport brings customers and employers very easily to their destination. Now coming to industrial development, as we all know, almost all big industries are located near the one of the highest transportation facilities like railroads or waterways, highways, in order to make their good movement easy. Movement of goods will be easier if they are located near the transportation infrastructure. Now coming to zoning changes, when government see this land changes occurring around transportation infrastructure, they may change the land use plans from residential, commercial, industrial based on transportation improvement. So coming to environment impact, definitely transportation will leads to deforestation, and it increased pollution and loss of green land, which is always a negative impact on transport environment. So only in the case of environmental context, transportation infrastructure may provide a negative concept, but other than that, all other fields are getting a boom when we introduce a transportation infrastructure. 11th question is, explain any two transportation service problem with suitable examples. Since the question is asking only to write down two problems, I'm sticking on to traffic congestion and inadequacy of the transport. Traffic congestion is overcrowding of vehicles in the transportation infrastructure. It can be road or waterways or whatever. So overcrowding of vehicles which cause delays, which cause frustration, and it also causes economic drops. The heavy traffic on a city road during an office hour is a very good example of traffic congestion. The second one is transport inadequacy. So we know in rural areas we don't have more number of bus services or train services, which is a inadequacy of transport facility. So this lack of efficient buses or trains leading to overcrowding at some particular area, and it also causes very difficulty for the movement of goods and people in that areas. So this is another problem. The example of transport inadequacy is limited metro connectivity, forcing people to rely on cars. So even in urban areas we can see metro facilities are there, but their timing will not be so suitable for all the people to accommodate in and out of between their origin and destination on their suitable hours. So this is an transport inadequacy problem. Urban structure with an example. So an urban structure refers to the spatial arrangement and organization of different land uses and activities within an urban area, along with the underlying transportation network that connect them. It describes the pattern of how the residential, industrial, commercial, institutional and recreational areas are distributed and how people and goods are moving in between them. So there are different types of urban structure. They are linear, grid, directional and centripetal. So in linear urban structure, this structure develops along a transportation line like a river, railway or highway. The best example of linear urban structure is our Navi Mumbai in India. It's often cited as an example of a linear city in many studies because it developed along the transportation routes. Types of different urban structures are linear, grid, directional and centripetal. The linear city is organized along a transportation route such as a river or a highway. The best example is Navi Mumbai, as I discussed before. Whereas in grid pattern, it organized around a series of straight streets which intersect at right angles. It creates a pattern of rectangular blocks. The best example is New York City. And directional urban structure is which is organized along a particular direction, such as waterfront or a mountain range. And this type of urban structure is often characterized by a development pattern that follows the natural features of the landscape. Example of directional urban structure is Washington DC. And the last one, centripetal, focused around a central point such as central business district or a historical landmark. And the best example of centripetal city is Kathmandu in Nepal. In Kathmandu, streams converge into a central depression, and some ancient Chinese cities are also having the same kind of centripetal urban structure. Moving to next question, what are the applications of trip rate analysis? At its core, trip rate analysis involves using data on the number of trips generated by or attracted to specific land use types. Think residential units, shopping centers, or even office complex, along with factors like size or price to estimate the travel demand. It's a foundational tool with a wide range of practical application. As you can see on the slide, trip rate analysis fuels several crucial aspects of transportation planning and land use. Let's explore each of this in a bit more detail. First, we have traffic impact assessment, TIA. Imagine a new shopping mall is proposed. A TIA utilizes trip rate analysis to evaluate the traffic this development will generate on the surrounding road network. This helps us determine if infrastructure improvements like new lanes or traffic signals will be necessary to handle the increased traffic flow. Next, up to transportation planning for new developments. When we are envisioning new communities or business district, trip analysis allows us to estimate the future demand for various transportation infrastructure and services. This includes things like road capacity, public transit route, or even pedestrian and bicycle facilities. So, by understanding the anticipated travel patterns, we can plan proactively to ensure efficient and sustainable transportation systems. Moving on to land use planning, trip rate analysis plays a vital role in informing decisions about the location and intensity of different land uses. For instance, knowing the trip generation characteristics of a high density residential area versus a low density one can help planners strategically locate these uses to minimize the transportation impacts and promote accessibility. Another important application is parking demand estimation. Trip analysis helps predict the parking requirement for various land use types. This is very crucial for developers and municipalities to ensure adequate parking is provided without overbuilding or creating shortages. Finally, the trip rate analysis is fundamental in developing input for trip travel demand models. It provides the critical first step, estimate the trip generation and attraction, which then feeds into more complex models that simulate how people travel across an entire region and across different transportation mode. So as you can see, a trip analysis is a powerful tool that underpins much of our understanding and planning for transportation land use. It allows us to move from simply observing the current travel pattern to proactively shaping the future mobility. Coming to the 14th question, explain any three characteristics of activity-based travel demand modeling. So, focusing on activity chain instead of treating each trip independently, activity-based models analyze sequences of activities performed by the individual throughout the day. For example, when a person going to work from home, his activities are from home to work. Then after working, he may go for buying something at the shop. So from work to shop, then return back to home. So this is the activities. These are the activities performed by an individual during his work day. So this recognized travel is derived from the need to participate in activities. And it also emphasizes on time and space constraints. These models explicitly consider the time available to individual and the spatial location of activities. The scheduling and sequencing of activities are constrained by travel times between the locations and the duration of activities. It is a disaggregate analysis since activity-based models typically operate at a more disaggregated level, considering the characteristics of individual travelers and their specific activity agendas. This allows for a more nuanced understanding of travel behavior heterogeneity. Moving to the 15th question, explain zoning and transportation planning. As we delve into transportation study, you will often hear the term zoning. Zoning refers to the division of the study area into smaller, relatively homogeneous geographic units. It is also called Traffic Analysis Zone, TAZ. Think of it like breaking down a large city or a region into manageable neighborhoods or districts for analysis. These zones become the fundamental spatial units for a wide range of activities. It is with these TAZs that we conduct our data collection, perform our analysis, and ultimately make a forecast about travel behavior. They provide a structured framework for understanding the complexity of movement within an area. Now let's look at the key objectives of zoning process. Firstly, zoning helps us determine the origin and destination of the trip by analyzing travel patterns to and from specific zones. We can consider where people are starting their zone and where they are going to. Secondly, they allow us to identify the factors influencing trip generation. So within each zone, we can examine characteristics like population density, employment level, income, and land use. And finally, zoning also helps us to identify main corridors of movement. By aggregating the travel patterns between different zones, we can pinpoint the key routes and pathways that people use to move around the study area. So, in essence, zoning through the creation of zones provides a vital spatial structure that enables us to systematically collect data, analyze travel behavior, and ultimately develop effective transportation plan. So it is a fundamental unit of the transportation planning, and it's a foundational step in understanding the movement of dynamics of a region. Okay, so the next question is, list any 3 factors affecting trip production. Here are the key factors that significantly influence how many trips are generated. First one is household size and composition. Larger the household, especially those with more working adults or school age children, naturally tendency to make more trips for work, school and other activities are higher. And second one is composition. Composition means type of, it can be age group. If aged people are residing in household, the number of trips making may be reduced than if the household contains all people who are employed or school going. So this is what we meant by composition. Second one is income and vehicle ownership. Higher the income level often lead to more vehicle ownership and a greater propensity to make trips, so particularly personal vehicle trips for various purposes. And third one is land use intensity and type. If the residential areas with higher population density typically generate more person trip per unit area. Additionally, the type of land use such as single family versus multi-family housing also plays a role in trip generation. So, household characteristics, economic factors and nature of the land use itself are all important determinants of how many trips originates from a particular location. And the 17th question is, what is the principle of growth factor model? The fundamental principle behind growth factor model is to forecast future travel demand by applying growth factors to existing trip pattern. Especially we take what we know about current travel and scale it up to or down based on anticipated changes in the area. A crucial assumption of these model is that future trip patterns will be proportional to the observed current pattern and scaled by the anticipated growth in the overall area or specific zone. This means we assume that relative distribution of trips between different areas will remain largely the same, even as the total number of trips increases or decreases. These growth factors are typically based on projection of population, employment, or any other relevant socio-economic indicators. For example, if we expect a particular zone to experience a significant increase in population or jobs, we would apply a corresponding growth factor to trip originating from or destined for that zone. The basic idea is straightforward. If a zone is expected to grow by certain percentage, its trip generation and attraction will also grow by a similar proportion. It's direct scaling approach based on anticipated development. Using a neat flowchart, explain trip and mode split analysis. Trip and mode split model is a method used to determine the mode of transport. For example, car, bus, bike, or simply walking, that a person will use after trip generation but before trip distribution or assignment. This is the 4-stage transportation planning process. So in this 4-stage planning process, we have to assign modes before the traffic assignment stage. This figure illustrates the typical flow of trip and model split model within the transportation planning. It shows its position between trip generation and trip distribution. At the top, we can see several key factors feeding into the trip generation stage, like public transport system characteristics, land use characteristics, socio-economic and highway characteristics. The trip generation stage, as we have discussed before, is where we estimate the total number of trips originating from and destined for different zones within our study area based on these influencing factors. The output of trip generation then feeds into model split stage, being a trip end model, the model split decision is applied after the total number of trips for each origin and destination is determined. We are essentially deciding for all trips ending or starting in a particular zone what proportion will use each mode. Notice that the mode split stage itself is influenced by same upstream factors, and these factors play a direct role in individual decision about which mode of transport to use for their trips originating or ending in a zone. The model split process then produces two key outputs categorized by mode for the total number of trips ending or starting in each zone. Public transport trip distribution. This now represents the total number of trips originating or destined for each zone that are expected to use public transportation. This total will later be distributed to specific origin destination pairs. Then road vehicle trip distribution. Similarly, this represents the total number of trips originating or destined for each zone that are expected to use private vehicles, also to be distributed to specific origin destination pairs later. The following model split, we have the trip distribution stage. This step takes the total number of public transportation trips and road vehicle trips associated with each zones and then distribute these trips between specific origin destination pairs based on factors like travel time and attractiveness of destination. Finally, the output of trip distribution leads to traffic assignment. This is where we allocate distributed trips onto specific links of the transportation network to estimate the traffic volume and understand network performance. 19th question is, what are the objectives of a comprehensive mobility plan? I have done an exclusive video on comprehensive mobility plan. You can refer to it. Basically, comprehensive mobility plan is a long-term strategy or transport sector investment program document for the desirable mobility pattern of study area. The main objectives are to provide a long-term vision and goal for a desirable urban development in each city and to illustrate a basic plan for urban development, including a list of proposed urban land use and transport measures to implement within a time span of 20 years or more, and to ensure that most appropriate, sustainable and cost-effective implementation program is undertaken in the urban transport sector. So these are the main three objectives of CMP. And the last question, illustrate the application of quick response technique in transport planning. Quick response technique is transportation planning refers to relatively low cost short term strategy aimed at addressing specific transportation problems. Its application is traffic signal optimization, transit route and schedule adjustment, pedestrian and bicycle improvement, transportation demand management strategies, incident management, parking management, temporary traffic management and public awareness campaign. So these are the main applications of quick response techniques.